Hello, in today's video, we're going to be replacing the rear brake pads on this 2016 Mazda CX-9. Since this vehicle is equipped with electronic parking brakes, before we even begin, we will need to put it into maintenance mode. Performing this step retracts your parking brake motors, allowing you to safely replace your rear brake pads. This way you'll avoid damaging the motors themselves when compressing your caliper pistons. Well, let's get right to it. First, we'll start with the vehicle in the off position. Now with your foot off of the brake pedal, we press the start button twice. This will put us into ignition on mode, and all the dash lights will illuminate at this point. Now we're going to press and hold the accelerator pedal all the way down. While continuing to do so, we'll also press and hold the parking brake button down. So as we continue to hold those, we're going to press the start stop button 3 times. This will turn the ignition off and then back on. If done properly, the parking brake motors will begin to retract, but you don't want to let go just yet, not until you hear the motors stop. This will also illuminate this electronic parking brake warning light, verifying that we are in maintenance mode and it is safe to work on your rear brakes. So you can go ahead and turn off the ignition mode by pressing the start button one more time. With the vehicle now in maintenance mode, and while it's still on the ground, let's start loosening all 5 lug nuts with a 21mm socket, at least a quarter of a turn. With the lug nuts loosened up, we'll lift the vehicle with a jack by placing the middle of the puck on this pinch weld section just in front of the rear wheel. Once we got it lifted high enough, we'll place a jack stand under this rear subframe portion for support. We're now able to remove the wheel completely. Giving us access to our brakes. With our parking brake motor retracted, we can go ahead and loosen and remove the 2 bolts holding the caliper using a 14mm socket. Once we break them loose, we can remove them the rest of the way by hand. With both of those bolts off, we'll slide out the caliper, angling it out so it clears the parking brake motor. And once we get it out, we can place the caliper off to the side for now. To remove the brake pads, we'll slide them back and off of the caliper bracket. And for this inner one, we'll do the same thing. We're also going to replace these brake pad retaining clips since we got new replacements with our ceramic brake pads. To remove them, we'll just pull each one away from the caliper bracket. Same with this upper one, we'll pull this one down and away from the caliper bracket. Before installing the new replacements, we'll want to clean the areas on the bracket where the retaining clips sit. Though on this one they're not so dirty, so I'll just wipe all the areas with a clean rag. And lastly, we're going to want to compare the new retaining clips with the old ones to make sure that they're the same. And if so, we'll line them up to the bracket and push them into place. Same with this upper one. Using the old brake pads for reference, let's now lubricate the contact points on our new brake pads. For this, I'll be using this lubricant made specifically for brakes. I'll start with lubricating the center where the caliper piston presses on the brake pad, followed by the edges that slide across the retaining clips. Lubricating these areas allow for smoother brake pad travel and helps prevent squeal due to vibration. On these edges, you do want to get rid of any excess lubricant to avoid it getting on the braking surface. We'll do the same with the back of this other brake pad, but for this one being the outer one, I'll lubricate where the caliper fingers grab against the brake pad. To install these, we'll start by pressing the warning tab spring downward. sliding it in between the retaining clip so it pushes the retaining clip facet forward as well, just like so. As we're pressing it down, we're going to guide the upper part of the brake pad inside the upper retaining clip, pushing the upper retaining clip's facet forward as well so it allows the brake pad through. For this inner brake pad, we'll repeat the same process, installing the lower part of the brake pad first, then guide the upper part through. Once installed onto the bracket, we'll push the brake pad against the rotor. We're also going to need to compress the brake caliper's piston to accommodate the new brake pads. So to compress it, we're going to use our brake caliper compressing tool, setting it up like so. On this one, we'll be using a regular piston adapter. Since we already retracted the motor, all we have to do is compress the piston directly as if it were a regular caliper. So with our tool in place, we'll just rotate the handle clockwise so it compresses the piston. As we do this, we're going to want to keep an eye on the brake fluid level in our reservoir to make sure that there's room enough for it and it won't overfill, since the fluid will be pushed back into the reservoir when compressing the piston. With our caliper compressed and the brake pads installed, all that's left to do is to clean and lubricate the caliper guide pins. So to remove them, just pull them back while sliding the rubber boot off of the pin. Now with our guide pin in hand, let's clean off the old lubricant using a clean rag. Now that we got it clean, let's lubricate the pin with new brake lubricant, brushing it on, then wipe it on evenly all around. With the guide pin ready, we'll reinstall it back onto the caliper bracket, making sure that the seal goes on properly all around. For this other guide pin, we'll be doing the same, although this one will have a rubber bushing to help prevent vibration, cleaning off the old grease first, followed by lubricating it with new brake lubricant. Once it's lubricated, reinstall it with the seal in all around. All that's left now is to reinstall the caliper, guiding it over the brake pads, pushing the guide pins inward if necessary as we reinstall it. Once in position, we'll reinstall the two caliper bolts by hand first. If the guide pin spins as we tighten the bolt, you'll want to hold it with a 19mm wrench as you tighten them with the ratchet. Then final torque them to 21 foot-pounds. With the brakes completed, we can reinstall the wheel, followed by the lug nuts, tightening them down in a star pattern, and torque them down to 100 foot-pounds of torque. For our next step, we're going to want to pump the brake pedal a few times. This will remove any space between the caliper piston and the brake pads. With everything put back together and completed, we're ready to remove maintenance mode. Once again, we'll turn the ignition on by pressing the start button twice. Again, we're going to press and hold the accelerator pedal all the way down. At the same time, this time we're going to pull up on the parking brake button and hold it there. While holding those down, we'll press the start stop button 3 times, continuing to hold the pedal and the switch. At this point, you should hear the motors once again as they adjust themselves to the new brake pads. Once you hear them stop, we can release both the accelerator pedal and the parking brake button. The icon on the dash should now be off as well, indicating that we are off of maintenance mode, thus completing this process and this video. Well, I hope you found this video helpful and informative. If so, please click that thumbs up button to support my video and my channel, and please subscribe if you haven't done so.